Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle a question that is absolutely critical for anyone using the cloud. How do you secure your AWS audit trail? And trust me, this isn't just some minor technical detail. It's the very key to understanding what is really happening inside your account.
So let's just kick things off with a scenario. Imagine a critical file is just gone. A system is misconfigured. Could you prove without a shadow of a doubt who did it, what exactly they did, and when? Your entire ability to investigate anything and to respond, it all hinges on the security of one single thing, your cloud's audit trail.
And that's where AWS CloudTrail comes in. Think of it as the black box flight recorder for your entire AWS account. Every single API call, every click in the console, literally every action taken by any user or any service, it all gets logged right here. This is your ultimate source of truth. Okay, but before we can even think about locking it down, we have to understand the foundational rule of cloud computing. This isn't just about AWS, it's about your part of the bargain. So let's talk about this shared responsibility model. This slide lays it out perfectly. It's the deal you make with a cloud provider. AWS takes care of securing the building itself. The data centers, the networks, the physical hardware. That's security of the cloud. But you're responsible for what happens inside that building. How you configure services like CloudTrail, who you give the keys to, and how you protect the data you put there. That's security in the cloud. So, if we're thinking of CloudTrail logs as our surveillance tapes, the first rule is pretty simple. You have to protect the evidence. What good are those logs if a bad actor or even just an accident can alter them or delete them entirely? They become worthless. Now, the good news is that AWS gives you a huge head start. By default, CloudTrail stores all its logs in an S3 bucket, and those logs are automatically encrypted when they're not being used. That's called server-side encryption, or SSE. It basically just means the raw data on the disk is scrambled and completely unreadable without the right keys. So that default encryption is a great starting point, but we can and we should lock this down even further. First, you need to enable log file integrity. This acts like a digital wax seal on your logs, proving that they haven't been tampered with. Second, rely on that strong default encryption. But for the absolute best control, step 3 is to use your own keys with the AWS Key Management Service, or KMS. This means you and only you hold the keys to decrypt your logs. All right, so encrypting the logs is half the battle. But what about protecting the CloudTrail service itself? Who can just turn it off? Who can reconfigure it? This is all about controlling the controls. And for that, we have to turn to AWS Identity and Access Management. You'll hear it called IAM. And this slide shows the two main ways IAM works. On one hand, you can attach a policy to an identity, say a user, that says what they're allowed to do. Think of it like their ID badge. It lists their permissions. Or you can attach a policy directly to a resource, like the S3 bucket, that says who's allowed to touch it. This is more like putting a bouncer at the door of the resource itself. Now, instead of throwing a wall of code at you, let's just break down the logic. Every single permission policy, whether it's for a person or a resource, it just answers these simple questions. First, what's the effect? Is it allow or deny? Then, who's the principal making the request? What's the action they're trying to take? And finally, what's the resource they're trying to do it on? If you can understand this who, what, and on what logic, you can write really secure permissions. Now, this quote from the AWS documentation points to a really, really powerful security control. See, every resource in AWS has a unique ID, called an ARN. By adding this source ARN condition to your bucket policy, you're creating a super strict rule. You're basically telling the bucket, hey, I will only accept logs from this one specific CloudTrail's ID and absolutely nowhere else. This stops a clever attack called the confused deputy problem, where someone could try to trick another service into dumping a bunch of garbage into your log bucket to cover their tracks.
All right, we've gone through the theory, we understand the components, now let's get practical. Here is your actionable 5-point checklist for a rock-solid AWS audit trail.
First up, make it a multi-region trail. This gives you visibility even if an attacker is trying to work in a region you don't normally use. Second, enable that log file integrity. That's your digital proof against tampering. Third, integrate with CloudWatch. This lets you create immediate alerts for suspicious activity, like someone trying to turn off your logging. Fourth, apply least privilege. If a user doesn't need to touch CloudTrail, they shouldn't have permission to, period. And finally, lock down that bucket policy with the source ARN condition to stop anyone from writing unauthorized data. So look, the big takeaway here is that securing CloudTrail isn't just about ticking a box on some security checklist. It is the bedrock of your entire security posture. It's how you investigate breaches, it's how you prove compliance to auditors, and it's how you get real insight into how your cloud is actually being used. It is your eyes and ears. And that brings us to our final and maybe most important thought. You now have the blueprint to secure your surveillance system and to protect the recordings. But having the footage, well, that's just the beginning. The real power comes from actually watching it. A secure audit trail is your foundation. The next step is to build on it, to actively monitor and analyze that data so you can catch threats the moment they happen. Your security journey doesn't end here. In fact, this is where it really begins.